Hello Wanderers, welcome to another photo edit. A little while ago I put up an entry on my blog about my daily commute to and from work and the sort of the two main roads that I drive every day. I specifically spoke about one particular day this spring where the light was just amazing, and on my way home I pulled over to the side of the road to try and get some good shots of the area. I'm sorry if you hear any noise in the background. I have two cats running around like crazy. So what I'm going to be doing is showing you an edit of an image I took that day. I should preface this by saying that on this particular occasion, I was testing out a new Fuji X100S camera that was just released, and I was shooting it in RAW. So I knew going into it that some of the details are going to be, especially in the foliage, would not come out that great because Fuji RAW files have sort of been the stumbling block for Lightroom recently, and I believe it has since gotten a little bit better. But in this particular case, I didn't really care about that too much because I was more concerned about sort of the mood of the scene than I was about being able to count all individual leaves on all the trees. So if you're looking at this, to gain some insight into how to get really, sharp, clear images, this probably isn't the photo for you. This photo from the first reminded me of a painting, and the way I approached the editing of it was to sort of enhance that look. So that's sort of the approach that we're going to be going. We're focusing on the mood and the painterly feel of the painting. So we start on Lightroom, where I start out all of my, I import all the photos through, and that's where I do the preliminary editing in. So we're in the basic tab, and as far as the exposure is concerned, I don't think I need to make any adjustments. Nothing's blown out. You can see detail in the shadows, where it's appropriate. I like that this area at the bottom here is darker than the rest. It kind of gives it more of a it makes it look a bit more dramatic, and I like that. And we're going to be enhancing that as well. The sky I like. This was the color of it. It was really a strange day. There was a lot of it had rained most of the day, and it was just a terrible weather outside. And then towards sunset, it just started clearing up, and we started to see a lot of these. That's the cats again. I do apologize. So we started to see these golden shafts of light, and in this particular case, you have the sun was pretty low in the horizon, and as you can tell, it's coming just right through here, and these trees just erupted in this gorgeous glow. Now, when I got home and I looked at this image, it appeared, a little bit too flat for my liking. It wasn't what I saw there. It was a much more vibrant scene. So that's the first thing that I would look to enhance in this case. I will bring the clarity up a little bit, maybe around 14, 15, doesn't really matter. And we're in that general area. And then I would take the vibrance up quite a bit, and saturation just a little bit, maybe a little less than that. So that immediately looks dramatically better. Another thing that I wanted to do is bring the warmth up a little bit. When I was there and I saw this glow that you can see, this light that hits these trees, it was a lot more intense. So what I would want to do is bring that up to about there, about 5600 looks much better. That's that for sort of the basic tab. Next, we might want to look at the colors. I would like to. Actually, we'll save that for Photoshop. We'll have much more sort of local control over the colors in Photoshop than we do here. So we'll skip that step. Next, I might want to just do some pre-sharpening, or in this case, this will be the only sharpening I'll do in this image. Because, like I said, there isn't a lot of fine detail here that we're concerned about. So
but just, if it's sort of printed, we don't want it to look too flat, so that's the main reason why we're doing it. So what I want to show you here is sort of the way I do sharpening here. So I would set this, just for demonstration purposes, I'll put it here on the sky, right? Now, if you pay attention to the sky, if I increase all the way up, and let me zoom in so you can actually see what I'm talking about. So, notice the trees, how ridiculous that looks. And the sky doesn't look much better either. Of course, we won't put it at that level. I generally put it around 75, but even at that level, I don't need any sharpness in the sky. That's not at all what I'm after in this case. So what I would do in this case is take the masking option, and I would set that to probably about 50. And as soon as I do that, what you notice is that sharpening goes out of the sky, and it becomes more focused on the area of the trees where there's fine detail. And here's what I mean about the Fuji raw files. I mean, this immediately looks like a painting even without doing anything. It just doesn't do too well with foliage. And like I said, this is an old processing, and it has since gotten much, much better. But it just doesn't do too well with raw files. But here I'm perfectly fine with it. In fact, I almost prefer it. It gives the whole thing a much nicer look, especially these trees, the white ones here. To me, this just looks wonderful. So I would leave that. And that's about all we would do in Photoshop here. In Lightroom. And from here, I would right click and go into Edit, Edit In, and we're going to open up in Photoshop. Okay, so here the first thing that I would do is use a technique that I use often, and I use it to sort of introduce some more drama into an image. I would do that by creating a new layer, and then and then we'll then fill it with the background image black. In this case, there's a shortcut, Control Delete, that does that. And then from there, I would change the blending mode from normal to soft light. Now, right now, this looks absolutely ridiculous, and it isn't the way we're going to keep it. We're going to control the intensity of this by lowering the opacity. For this one, I'd probably set it to someplace around 40%. And then what figure you decide to use for opacity of this effect, it's really, it's up to you what you like on the individual scene. But I would not leave it at this. The whole purpose of doing this is to allow us to then make more local adjustments. So what I want to do is I will create a layer mask, okay? And on the white layer mask, the blank layer mask, I would then paint with the black, to conceal this effect from certain areas and let in the lighter layer below it, fill those areas in. And where I would apply this would be sort of in the areas where the highlights are already. So I have my flow here set at 20%. Sometimes I take it down as low as 5%, even less sometimes. But in this case, I think 20% is probably fine. And you see, as soon as I do this, that it brings in some more light. And I'm, not being very careful about the size of my brush here. I'm just kind of doing it. And again, I'm doing this just to bring in a bit more light into these areas and leave the rest darker, thereby creating a more dramatic look. There's that contrast. And of course, the main area where we want to do this is, these trees. Now, 20% flow might be too high here, which is fine. And you can always
paint almost directionally, like the way the light's coming in, you know, kind of do it like that. And then I might also do it in the clouds here where they're already lighter, just to give the whole thing a nicer look. Put that down a bit. Really want to get into these branches here. Yeah, and then we can take a look at the before and after. So after we see a lot more drama, but still we're preserving the light there. And really the reason why I'm doing this is to give the whole painting a more moody effect, a more dramatic look. And honestly, the way this looks right now is a lot closer to the way it looked when I was standing there as well. So it's sort of a dual purpose almost. The next thing we might want to do here is, you can kind of tell that there's some greenery trying to poke through here. Like these trees here, they're, you know, just budding. So I might want to bring out those greens a little bit more. There are many ways that we can do this in Photoshop, but since we're kind of taking a painterly approach to this to begin with, and there isn't a whole lot of detail here for me to worry about preserving, what I might want to do is create a new layer, and then change the blend mode to color. And what that would mean then is it would allow me to paint with a color, preserve any texture that's there, but still introduce more color. So in this case, I would then go into the green spectrum and pick a color. You don't want to go too crazy with something like that. That's just going to look ridiculous. So we kind of want to be, but you don't want to go too dark either, because the darker you go, it doesn't actually bring a color in. It kind of desaturates the image. So we kind of want to be in this kind of spectrum here. Maybe a little bit more. Something like that. And you can always play with it and see how it looks. And I don't want to be at 20% here, because that's just going to be way too intense right away. So I'll go to 5. And we'll kind of paint that in. Again, I apologize for background noise. Can't really do much about the cats today. Now, as you might be looking at this, you might think that is way too much. That looks silly. And you're right, it does. But again, we want to be able to tell what we're doing first, and then afterwards we would make any other adjustments in how intense this whole thing appears. Another thing is, you know, you see me just use one color over and over. I'm mainly doing that to save time, but you can, you know, you can then go and pick a darker color and, you know, go at it with that a bit. You can also sample colors that are around it, so you can sample that, bring that in. That's a very dark color, so it kind of tends to desaturate things a bit. So I might not do that, but that green might work better. So again, this isn't how I would generally do something like this, but because this photo already has a very painterly effect, this will work just fine. I'll erase it there. It's not necessarily where I want it. Okay, and so if we zoom out, you know, you can tell that's very intense and not at all what we might want to have. Oops. And let's go on the eraser. That happens. You know, you gotta watch what you're doing. And then what I do here is take this way down to about maybe 25-30%. And that immediately looks a little bit better. Then what I can do is I can go into hue and saturation here in the adjustment layers, choose my greens, and you can take the hue to where you like it, up the saturation a little bit, and then if I increase the move the lightness up and down, it might change it as well. Now, the thing to keep in mind here is that while we might perceive this as green, it still predominantly has yellow as its color. So if I actually go into yellows, you'll see this, change a lot more towards green. So it's a very powerful tool. But so what I might do is take this up a bit like this. Take the lightness down a bit. And then take advantage of the layer mask, invert it, and then paint that in where we'd want it with white. And this is on normal blend mode, of course, so we can just bring that into the areas that we want it. Yeah, so that's just one of the many ways that you can control. And again, I will take the opacity of this down quite a bit. Actually, probably even more than that, because we don't want it to look too silly. Next, these trees here and the grass, I would like to make that, a bit more orange. So what I can do is do another hue and saturation, take the yellows and move it towards there. Saturation up a little bit. Take that down, and then again, cover that up with a layer mask and paint in the effect where we would like to have it. And again, I'm painting with a very low opacity. Not opacity, I'm sorry, flow. Another way you can achieve this similar effect is, you can increase the overall warmth of the image, and then just paint that in where you like it. That'll work just fine as well. But the main point that I'm trying to carry across here is, when making adjustments to an image, try to make as few adjustments globally as possible, because you want to have control, right? So you don't want to go crazy with global adjustments. You want to make them locally. You want to paint things in where you want them, and leave them out in the other areas. So I could be a lot more careful about these little branches up here by zooming in and all that, but again, in interest of time, I'm just giving you rough ideas how this would be done. But even so, at viewing distance, this will appear just fine. And there we have it. And now we have a lot more of a, play in zooming in a little bit. That gives us, I was careful to preserve the whiteness of these little trees here, while adding in some of the orange tones in the branches. And we can do the same in these areas in between. So there we have it. I can now give you a bit of a look at what this looks before and after. Oops. That's not the appropriate way to do it. So let's just do this. So we can do, there's a function Control-Alt-Shift-E that basically combines everything into one image, and then what I'll do is deselect those, and so that's where we started out with from Lightroom, and that's with some further stylizing we get a much more effective image. Immediately notice the darkening on the edges, some more drama, the colors pop out a bit more,
And yeah, I like it a lot more. It's not a lot. It still has that painterly feeling that we wanted, even more so, you know, with the higher saturation. And it looks a very nice image. So that's it for this photo edit. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon.